make related to a couple of things that we anticipate a great deal of sentiments about. First of all, the Highland Avenue situation. We've been meeting for several months now in which this has been discussed. This relates to an effort to eliminate parking along Highland Avenue by students at the high school. The residents there have had the burden of not having appropriate access in front of their homes for a number of years, and it has been our effort and will continue to be our effort to eliminate that situation. And in achieving that, we passed a resolution last month in which we would declare that to be a no parking area between the times of 8 to 3 or something like that. 7 to 10. And our last meeting, there was a great deal of concern by some of the parents of the students in that they were not being offered adequate places to park elsewhere. So we were basically, leaving them in their vehicles without a home. And furthermore, the fact that there are not late buses, that they didn't really have very viable alternatives. Chief Dunn has been very involved in this thing, in evaluating the logistics of how we are able to meet our residents' needs there, as well as to provide a place for our young people to park. And I think he circulated a memo to the commissioners right after our last meeting indicating that the school board was in the process of creating some additional parking spaces. Could you elaborate on that, please, Chief?
Yes, after last Monday night's work session that was attended by some of the students here, I went up to the high school on Tuesday morning, and the maintenance department was in the process of adding approximately 55 parking spaces at the high school. They had 30 students on their list waiting for parking permits, 30 or 32 students, and I believe with the 55 extra spaces there should be adequate parking for the normal students who drive to school that get the permits. I'm sure there'll still be some off-street parking somewhere in the area where the kids just don't want to park in the high school, but the problems that arose last Monday night, I believe, are rectified now. And I recommend to the commissioners that we still leave the no parking on Highland Avenue to keep those streets clear of the kids. They have parking at the high school now if they need it. There should be enough spaces, and there should be possibly even more spaces added after the school year is over with.
I think that the temporary elimination of ticketing in that area, I think that other commissioners will have an opportunity to speak in 1 second on this issue, but I think that we would expect that you to go back to the normal policy of ticketing people who violate the signs in that area at this time, and that there is alternative parking.
That's correct, Mr. Coslet, but there wasn't any school today. When I put out a memo on the internet and we had discussed it with the commissioners, we thought I was under the impression school started this morning, and it starts tomorrow morning, so we're going to give the kids the rest of the week to get their permits, but enforcement will start next Monday morning.
And you'll request that they do an announcement as they did previously within the...
Yes, I believe that's being taken care of.
Thank you. Anyone else want?
I just want to personally thank our police chief for his good work in this regard, and I appreciate the efforts of the school district superintendent and the school board and the staff that apparently did respond to our concerns. The commissioners were anxious, and we encouraged our school district to reasonably respond to this problem, and they apparently have, and we appreciate that. The assignment of the spaces are obviously the school district's jurisdiction to do. At this point, I believe the ordinance will stand, and I don't believe there's anything on the agenda tonight to suggest that it won't, that's going to be amended, and we expect that the ordinance will be abided by, and the young people will not park in that area, and relief will be provided to the residents who own private property and deserve this kind of relief. And we appreciate the effort of our police chief and our school district.
Ned, as the board is well aware, I was a negative voter on the banning of parking on Highland Avenue, and the reasons that I gave at the time were that the school district had not provided for adequate parking on premise for 30, 40, or 50 students each day, and I was very much uncomfortable with ordinancing no parking on Highland Avenue without having an alternative for our students. At the urging of all the board, Chief Dunn has done an excellent job in working very closely and very specifically with the school district. And just last week, as Barry said, the school district did respond to the needs of the students and come up with additional parking. My intent was never to deny those on Highland Avenue with the right to their privacy and the right to have their streets open. My intent was to be sure that the school district was providing enough space for the kids, and at such time then parking should be banned on Highland and would make sense. Now that the additional space is there, I am fully in accord with the board 100%, and the parking restriction as of next Monday will be enforced, and rightly so. It's the right thing to do, and it was done in the appropriate manner, giving the school district an opportunity to provide spaces for our students, not leaving anybody hanging out in the cold. And now it's done, and it's been done appropriately, and I am supportive. Thanks, Ned.
Thank you. The other issue that we anticipate a lot of thoughts about tonight is related to the antenna on the police station. And I just wanted to, before we get into the, just give a little bit of background so that we're all speaking with a certain amount of information on that issue. Last month, the commissioners passed a resolution to sign a lease with a provider that they would put a tower on the, extend the tower and replace and extend higher the tower that is currently on the police building. There are many residents who are very concerned about that, as well they should be. I wanted to just explain what the process is and what happens from here on as far as that application. One of the party with whom we've entered into potentially an agreement has until May 11th to sign that lease, to arrange with a co-provider so as that we would have three uses on that particular tower, so as to eliminate other areas where we'd have to put towers in the township. So they would have to enter into an agreement with a co-locator. If they do not are not able to do that and return a lease to us by May 11th, then we would have to go back and look at other options. The second thing that I would like to add is that in one of the advantages to this location was that there was an existing antenna, and then we did have the ability to co-locate, meaning that by putting several users on the same antenna, we would eliminate the situation of having to look somewhere else in the immediate proximity for a place to put a tower. The third thing that I would like to just make people aware of is there's nothing on our agenda tonight related to this. You're certainly welcome to bring anything to our attention, and we certainly welcome your comments on it, but there will be no action tonight taken that I'm aware of taken on this particular item. There will be, and there is a requirement that this application go through land development and I think also variance. So there will be additional opportunities beyond this in which this will be considered, by different boards within the township. That would be the Planning Commission, the Zoning Hearing Board, and then again at a future time before the commissioners. So again, get informed, be informed, express your concerns this evening, but there will also be forums down the road to express these same concerns. In 1 second, we'll start our citizens forum. We had asked in conjunction with Barry's comments earlier, if there's anyone from the Small Business Association who was here this evening. I would like to give him the first opportunity to speak on response to, give an opportunity to address the services they're providing to the public in Marple.
I'm not prepared to address that aspect.
Okay.
I have comments regarding the statement made last week, but I'm not going to discuss the association.
Well, you as everyone else has opportunities.
Thank you. Tony Campisi. As you know, I work for the Small Business Association of Delaware Valley that's located in Marple Township. Before I say anything, I just would like you to be aware that it is in that respect that I'm here and I respectfully request that neither my presence nor my comment be portrayed with any other characterization simply because I happen to hold another title in Marple Township. In light of comments made last week by Commissioner Dozier, I feel it necessary to defend myself, my employer, our right to conduct business in Marple Township, and the free enterprise system in general. At last week's Commissioners' meeting, Mr. Dozier produced, in our opinion, an inappropriate televised commercial endorsement for the Marple Business and Professional Association, and urged this board, and I quote, word for word, stand by, advertise, and support the Marple Business and Professional Association. In so doing, he urged the Marple business community to reject efforts of a competing organization, the Small Business Association of Delaware Valley, to, and I again quote, win the hearts of Marple's business owners. I choose not to address the motives for Mr. Dozier's action, nor his personal conflict regarding this matter. Those issues stand on their own merit. It is unfortunate, however, that rather than welcome the SBADV to his town, Commissioner Dozier has chosen to alienate not only the largest business association in the tri-state area, but a small business that specifically chose to relocate to his township because of the favorable business climate. In his comments, Mr. Dozier urged this Board of Commissioners to essentially endorse the Marple Business and Professional Association as the association of choice for the Marple business community. In so doing, he has interfered with SBADV's fundamental right to conduct business in this community. He did so without any effort to contact the SBADV and inquire as to our services, our benefits, and our activities. He did so ignorant of the fact that the two associations are as dissimilar as any two organizations could be, charging different dues and providing different services. He incorrectly stated, and he corrected this tonight, that SBADV is a for-profit association when in fact we are a Pennsylvania nonprofit corporation. He did so with the unmistakable inference that MBPA members and staff have the best interests of Marple Township at heart, while members and staff of SBADV do not. By his inaccurate words, he gave a false impression that SBADV does not perform charitable and civic works when in fact it does. Finally, Mr. Dozier, along with the vocal support of Mr. Nash, incorrectly identified the Marple Business and Professional Association as being a charitable organization when facts suggest otherwise. To my knowledge, the MBPA is not a designated 501c3 charitable organization, nor is it registered as a charitable organization according to the Pennsylvania Bureau of Charitable Organizations. At the very least, elected officials should be extremely cautious when discussing subjects with which they have little knowledge and should not provide misleading information to constituents. As the marketing executive for SBADV and a 28-year resident of Marple Township, I take personal offense to Mr. Dozier's comments and to this board's silence, with few exceptions, as to the inappropriateness of the remarks made last week. I also feel very passionately that it's highly inappropriate and unprecedented for this elected body or any single member thereof to interject itself into what is essentially a competitive relationship between two private sector entities. And I would remind the board that this is not the Soviet Union. We do not subscribe to state-sponsored activities, nor do we as citizens of a free market capitalist society expect our government to use taxpayer time and resources to favor one business entity over any other, least of all because one does not happen to subscribe to the beliefs and concerns of Commissioner Dozier's collective. With the exception of Mrs. Yingling, Mr. Butler, Mr. Longacre, all coincidences aside, this board has had a tremendously deafening silence with regard to the inappropriateness of Mr. Dozier's exclusive product endorsement. In the business world, as you all know in the political world, competition improves the product. Let the business community in this township, free of any influence or sponsorship from this body or any member thereof, decide who best represents their needs and concerns. Leave business decisions to the marketplace. Apply yourselves to the matters of government, the matters with which the people elected you to deal with. The free market, which is the cornerstone of our capitalist economy, has done fine by this country for over 200 years because government has, in general, not interfered. I assure you it will continue to function well long after all of us are gone. Finally, SBADV has taken it upon ourselves to contact the Keystone Tax Bureau, the private company which collects mercantile taxes for this township. The misinformation provided to them by an official of this township with regards to the nonprofit status of SBADV has been corrected. I trust the formal response you received from Stephen Markowitz, Chair of SBADV's Government and Community Affairs Committee, will be formally and publicly read into this evening's record as requested.
Who else would like to speak? Start here and work.
My name is Chris Ricciuti. I'm a resident of Marple Township, 210 Morton Avenue. I'm here to speak for the cellular tower decision by the board. It's irrelevant how exactly close I live to this tower, because it will affect me eventually, and it will affect every one of your wards. Personally, I feel from the information that I've obtained from sub-house committees, Pennsylvania House of Representatives, that well, let me say first, I'm sorry. The commissioners entered into a contingency agreement with Sprint approximately March 16th, 1998. And at that time, John Butler was absent from the vote. John Butler is Representative Ward 2 in my area. Accordingly to, this is what I see, from Marple Township law, the vote appears to be invalid due to the fact that our ward was unrepresented at the time. If this tower was going into someone else's ward, Ward 7, Ward 6, Ward 5, and Mr. Butler was absent, it would have no effect on our immediate ward. But at that time the vote was taken, Mr. Butler was not at the vote. Mr. Butler stated that if he was at the vote, he would have voted yes anyway, but that would be irrelevant, because at the time the vote was taken, he was absent and the people were unrepresented.
That was a report that you read in the paper.
That may be, but you were absent from the vote, and that is the point. Well, within the paper, that's what I read in reference to the sunshine laws, and in this instance, they don't apply to this particular situation. If the vote is upheld, then the finding would be invalid, and a second vote would be undertaken. The question here is why. This cell site behind the building, Sprint technically does not need, and technology-wise does not need, the cellular tower at this site. Sprint is using the police, unfortunately, as a way to get the tower in. It's a well-known fact that cellular industry has developed strategies to limit the amount of time a community may have to mount a campaign of opposition against the tower. Companies will schedule public hearings quickly and quietly and as secretly as possible. Companies such as Sprint and others offer monetary benefits to popular community groups in exchange for a tower placement, such as in this case the police, where they will need an extension of a tower and not necessarily another tower. And the companies will request to place a tower near a school building where the school may need money for supplies. If there is opposition against the tower, then the cellular companies will say, well, you're against the school. You don't want the school to get pencils or books. And in this case, we don't want the police to get the tower, which is not necessarily true. We want to get the police everything that they need. If they need bulletproof vests, I'm pro police. And if they need anything, an extended tower, they'll get it. But the cellular tower is another issue that in the eyes of many, the cellular industry tries to mix the two, and they're not the same. They offer numerous benefits and blur the disadvantages. However, towers do decrease property values. This is a result of community fears and aesthetic effects, which can cause a town to lose its reputation as a safe and beautiful community. An article in December of 1993 in the Wall Street Journal cites a study by an appraiser in Pennsylvania and in California showing that properties bordering on or in the vicinity of a tower sold for 15 to 30% less than comparable properties not adjacent or near the tower. This article also cites California homeowners who were unable to sell their homes after a tower was erected nearby. Will the commissioners, Marple Township and/or Sprint offer guarantees to the homeowners of these properties in direct sight of the tower if they become devalued by the proposed tower? Will you pay for and guarantee medical bills for any and all local citizens who develop illness and disease as a result of the tower placement? Will you offer guarantee and purchase homes and property at a fair market value if such properties become devalued or unsellable as a result of the tower site? As a consumer, do you purchase products without a guarantee? According to the most recent report by Majority Chairman Paul W. Semmel and Minority Chairman Ronald Buxton, Subcommittee of Telecommunications, House Committee, the findings and recommendations indicate the following. The subcommittee finds that state and local government and this township may exercise authority as deemed necessary and appropriate over the placement, construction, and modification of cellular facilities. Dr. William A. Creasy, who is a medical physician, indicated that it is important to carefully consider the possibility of risk because we do not want to find that years from now there had always been a risk of exposure and nothing was done to limit that risk. This is an advertisement for a tobacco company. It's dated October 23rd, 1930. And in it states at that time that no wonder 20,679 physicians have stated that Lucky's to be less irritating. At this time, they knew that there was a direct cause to cancer with tobacco. But as you can see with the meetings, the representatives from the tobacco company held their right hand and swore they had no documents to the effect that tobacco directly caused cancer, and in their left hand they were holding the documents under the table. So that's basically okay. And also with relation to this this tower over the placement, to consider the possibility of risk, and there had always been a risk. Testimony supplied to this committee indicated that no department or agency in Pennsylvania at this time has no technical experience required to test cell sites. If they erect a cell site and they want to turn up the wattage, you will have no idea that they do. There's only one state in the country, and that's Connecticut. They're the leaders in the industry, and Connecticut has complete control over towers in and around the state. It takes approximately 190 to 250 days from the time that the cellular company proposes an agreement to the time that a cell site is actually put up. And also in Pennsylvania, to continue, Denise Chamberlain, who is the Department Secretary of Environment Protection for Air Recycling and Radiation, stated that a non-ionizing radiation program and that the DEP staff are not experts in the field of RF emissions, nor do they have the equipment to measure RF fields. With regard to placement of towers, consideration of the use of school grounds or buildings for placement of facilities should only be used as a last resort. So they're hedging their bets. There's no conclusive proof that there is. There is a lot of proof that there can be, just like the tobacco industry. So what you're doing is you're taking a risk. But the Pennsylvania House Committee has chose to hedge their bets and state that you should just keep it away from schools and children, libraries, where children are. And finally, the tower will represent a flashpoint, beginning or an end of Marple's future. I came from Philadelphia for 41 years. In South Philadelphia, I grew up, and I moved to Overbrook for 10 years and researched many counties because of the work that I do, and I found Marple to be a very pleasing place to be, especially for my children, 8 and 5 years old. If the commissioners do not void or rescind the lease agreement at this exact site, and if this tower is completed in this densely populated residential area, this will be the first one that you will place in a heavily populated area and will set a precedent for others to follow. You will not be able to stop the placement of towers at the Veterans Park at Lawrence Road or the Paxton Hollow Golf Course on Fairway 5, the Memorial Gardens, and etc. They will use the placement today as a way to get the towers in every one of your wards. And how you handle this site depends on how they will handle the future sites that will surely come. And how you handle this decision today could be possibly, obviously you are political representatives, can be political suicide. So clearly there are many issues, and clearly there is a monetary inducement. The PCS agreement you speak of, that we make $15,000 a year. As it states here, we make $100 the first year, am I right? And thereafter we make $15,000?
It's $100 or something at signing. And I
It
think
says rent until the occupancy
once
date.
it's occupied, it's 15.
Right, but according to this, it says rent will be a one-time aggregate payment of $100, the receipt of which owner acknowledges. Thereafter, rent for each year of the initial term will be $15,000.
I think you read it says over partial year. Once it's turned on, it's $15,000 per
Okay.
year, and then if it's renewed after the 5 years, there's a 15% escalation.
Okay. Also, the telecommunications company, the IRS put a worth on the towers to the telecommunications company and what they make for the company, the money that they generate. They generate approximately $2.5 million a year, each cell site, each tower. That's how much they represent. And the township gets $15,000. As a business deal, it stinks. I own my own business, and I would never go for something like this. So if you do a little bit of research, I've done this research for approximately 1 month, and I found this information out. It's all public information, especially the tax situation with the IRS, because there's been many people that have been fighting these cellular towers, especially in the residential area. So basically, with business-wise, it's not even a good idea for Marple. The insurance. I was formerly in the insurance industry. The SSLP will procure and maintain commercial general liability insurance with limits of not less than $1 million, combined single limit per occurrence for bodily injury, property damage liability with a certificate of insurance to be furnished within 30 days of written request. Which means that they only have $1 million for this of insurance for this tower. So if there is a cancer cluster later on, that's how much they will fork out for this tower. According to first party in, your insurance will pay for any damages first, if I am correct. And thereafter, the second insurance policy will kick in. It's no different than when you rent a car and they say, would you like to use the insurance, our insurance? If you notice, when you rent a car, they won't rent you a car unless you have insurance, because that insurance company, your insurance company is first party in. If you get in an accident with a rent-a-car, they come after your insurance company first, and then the second insurance company that you purchase with the car pays 20%, usually like 80-20. So that's another thing to consider. And thank you for your time.
Okay. Who else? I see a hand in back there.
Eleanor McGovern, 125 2nd Avenue. As you know, most of the time when nobody else wants it, they put it in the second ward. I realize that you have a tower here. I don't think there was adequate discussion for the type of tower that you anticipate putting in. I think that you need much more condensed studies on the type of effect from the radioactivity of these towers. And number 3 is, I used to work for a non-destructive testing laboratory, and they took body counts. We used to go into Peach Bottom, Limerick. We did inspection, and as everyone knows, radioactivity affects the youngest and the dearest first and most formidable. I think the second ward doesn't want this tower to be increased. I think by the stature of the people that have come out tonight, that I must compliment those commissioners who voted against it, because I do believe that it's a mistake, and I hope that you sincerely put a lot of thought into this and don't enlarge it. Thank you.
My name's Mark Halley, 2623 Radcliffe Road. I was curious, by a show of hands, who here approved it and who disapproved? Just so we can see.
I think the committee...
Can you just show us who approved and who didn't? I mean, who approved and who didn't? No, why not?
Wait 1 second. The commissioner...
We have a right to know, don't we, sir?
No one has denied that.
But just put your hands up. Who approved? Who approved? Okay, it's no big deal.
The committee... Excuse me.
No, I don't want to go that way.
The commissioners who approved this were Commissioner Nash, Commissioner Longacre, Commissioner Yingling, and myself.
That's all. I'm sitting here. I don't know anybody here.
That's fine.
I don't know a soul. I don't know what happened. I don't know if anybody else here doesn't know a soul. This is all new to me. I'm just a new kid on the block. So I just want to know who said yes and who said no.
I just told you.
You know, okay. I just want to say, I'm just myself.
We don't know who's who. We'd like to associate a name and a face.
Put your hands. Next year's voting. Hands up, please. Next year's
Okay, there it is.
Let me just...
That's all. I just wanted to say...
Wait a second. I'm very happy to, hear everybody that's here, and I'm very happy to put my hand up, in this case, that I voted for it. The idea of the public forum is so that we can talk back and forth. We are all neighbors, and we're here to listen. But you don't need to yell at us. Well, I mean, this is an open meeting. We're all neighbors. We're all neighbors.
I just want to say, as a neighbor, I'm new here. I have my wife, 2 kids. I walked around. I've never been involved politically around here. I just walked around my block, and I was amazed to know that, like, people on Sproul Road here who I saw on Easter had no idea. No idea. And is that because they're not active, or is that because we're not trying to tell them? But in my mind, if I was ever doing what you guys are doing, or doing what I'm doing, I would think somebody who lives, like, literally going to walk out the door and stare at this thing, someone would have the courtesy to walk over and tell them. I mean, that's a big thing. People are moving up and down this street,
Good evening. My name is Susan Parrish. My address is 213 First Avenue. And I'm going to get emotional. I grew up here in Marple Township. I am raising 3 wonderful children. And I hope to be able to retire here someday. Unfortunately, if things keep going the way they are, I don't think it will be a desirable place to live in the near future. We are here tonight to respectfully request that you rescind the agreement you signed with Sprint PCS for a 140-foot transmitting cell tower at the location of Sproul and Springfield Roads, directly behind this very building, to save the future of our hometown. Not at the location where the tower is for the police, but directly behind a library where children locate all the time. Our first point on this subject is our shock and dismay that the commissioners we put our faith in to keep Marple one of the top 10 places to live in the Philadelphia area would not consider notifying the people who vote them into office about a major decision like putting a microwave transmitting cell tower in the middle of a densely populated area. 5 houses got a handout. 5 houses. 3 people remember getting the handout, but they didn't understand what it was about. In our opinion, the whole town should have been notified in the papers about a town meeting to discuss the issue and to guide the placement of these towers appropriately. A placement committee could be formed for this very sensitive issue. Second, We have to question why we are forced to come here tonight to enlighten our commissioners and try to win them to our side when they should have been backing us in the first place. For example, Brookhaven denied requests by Bell Atlantic for 4 different cell locations. I want to read you a couple of the locations because some of them may sound familiar. Oh, thank you. The first one is Brookhaven Memorial Park, Brookhaven Community Center on Cambridge Road, Brookhaven's Eaton Park, and then the last choice is the Congregation Ohev Shalom's Cemetery. These are all locations we have, and they're prime. Maybe they know something you weren't aware of. Newtown Square and Brookhaven had 100% backing from their zoners and commissioners. I strongly suggest you contact the local officials in these towns and find out why they're backing their residents. Here, we are finding out that this tower has been discussed as far back as August in closed-door meetings. It was not on the agenda and was considered other business at the February commissioners' meeting. I need another hand. Can you hold that up? Okay. These are the minutes from the February commissioners' meeting. It was under other business while fertilizer and parking permits were on the agenda. In March, when the vote was taken, the issue was still not on the agenda, but the Sprint and OmniPoint you see, it made me lose my place again. The people just happened to be there, and it was put to a vote. Sprint and OmniPoint people just happened to be there, not the residents. At the same meeting, everyone breathed a sigh of relief that the illegal leaf dumping fees were reduced to only $25,000. Third, I know you are all intelligent individuals and business persons. Why is it that the legality of this decision wasn't even considered? Both the old zoning codes and the newly written codes revamped to come into compliance with the FCC regulations regarding cell sites. Don't allow this tower in this location. And I'd like to read from the new proposed codes. Antenna height should be no greater than the distance of the antenna from the property line of an adjacent tract. In this case, no more than 15 feet to 150 feet. But if anyone walks out back here, there isn't even 150 feet back there. The minimum setback from a residential district shall be 200% of the antenna's height, which would mean 300 feet. Thank you. Sprint is a business out for profit. I'm sure if it was a barber shop or a grocery store, you wouldn't have allowed it in this tiny space. Fourth, as to the police use of the tower, may I say that we are all for giving our police officers whatever they need to do their jobs to the best of their ability. However, I have learned from several officers that this tower is not necessary to the Marple Police. They require that their own tower needs to be inspected, painted, some new cables put in, and the height raised 15 feet. We are all for a fundraiser or township funds being allocated for this purpose. Sprint cannot use them as an excuse to bring their own profit of $2.5 million. Fifth, we hope to shed light on this matter because we feel you may have been left partially in the dark by Sprint and the other telecommunications companies wishing to put towers up in Marple. Please see the list of towers currently in place. Steve, if you want to pass this down. It's on the back of this flyer. The towers currently in place and proposed are on the back of this flyer. There are still telecommunications companies that we haven't even heard from yet. Where will their towers go? If you allow a tower to be built in the most densely populated area in Marple and ignore 2 zoning codes, will you set the precedent for all the telecommunications companies? And then we won't have a choice on where to put the towers. In 5 years, you can expect to see towers appear on Paxton Hollow Golf Course, St. Peter and Paul Cemetery, Veterans Memorial Park, Cedar Grove Farms, Worrell School, the Springton Estates, Loomis School, the old Votech School, and many more. No one will be exempt. Sixth, I would like to refer to my chart for some very valid reasons not to place any more towers in the center of Marple Township. We are asking for common sense, the safe use of technology. The first item is property values decrease. From aesthetic effects to cancer to noise factors, no matter how you look at it, towers are not good for the community. Property values decrease anywhere from 13 to 40%, depending on the location and the other factors I just mentioned. Health risks. If someone doesn't want a cellular tower in their backyard because they're concerned about exposure to radio frequency and microwave radiation, don't put it there. The communications industry scoffs at those who intimate real danger from their technology. But how many times has industry and the U.S. government sanctioned product and technology only to find out years later that they're extremely harmful? I have numerous articles and studies on the subject, and they all cite health concerns such as learning disabilities, cancer, leukemia, DNA damage, blood disorders. This one's got 35 pages of cited health problems. Electrical sensitivity and other adverse effects. This one's cellular phones and brain cancer. This one, a field study was taken between two schools. One school was located near a microwave communication system, and for 2 years they studied the 4th and 5th grade students. Within a 9-month period, 2 cases of lymphatic leukemia, 1 of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and 1 of brain cancer. Another elementary school within 3 miles of the site of concern was also examined. No cases of cancer had been reported for this school within the previous 6 years. This one's a really good one. There's no debate that electromagnetic fields cause biological change. Those most at risk include infants, elderly, ill, disabled, obese, pregnant women, people who are dependent on medication, have hypertension, sedatives, tranquilizers, diuretics, people with thermoregulatory disorders, and people who in adverse environmental conditions such as heat and humidity. Exposing people in their homes by continuously bombarding their bodies with electromagnetic radiation without their permission and continued medical surveillance is human experimentation without informed consent. It's morally wrong. Worse, it's intentional, willful, reckless misconduct that has the potential to open up an unprecedented legal abyss. True scientists advocate the more judicious course of minimizing exposure by selecting remote tower sites. Okay, I already listed the people at risk. The third item is fear. From health risks or the tower falling or children getting hurt, fear lowers the quality of life for those around the tower and in the community. Noise. Noise of a tower can be unpleasant. Many towers have loud generators and monitoring devices. The hum from this facility harms the neighborhood and the peace of mind. The wind also causes pollution, noise pollution. Interference. The FDA has reported interference to such life-saving items as wheelchairs, infant monitors, and pacemakers. Think what it can do to your everyday home devices. Aesthetics. Cellular towers vary in height. You can hand out these pictures. We have pictures of the Havertown Tower. Cellular towers vary in height. They range from 10 to 150 feet. 150 feet is 15 stories high. A tower can be ugly and unsightly, especially in areas such as Marple that are unaccustomed to tall structures. We also have a brochure here that shows it next to a high-rise building and how bad it looks. Additional towers. Towers are not inherently beneficial. They do not provide essential services such as the police, fire, and emergency medical services, which, by the way, they all have the current antennas that they require, other than the police needing 15 feet in height. Cellular phones are not considered public utilities. Their benefit cannot be compared with other utilities like electricity and wired telephones. Cell phones are also dangerous for use in their own right. In fact, these towers could be obsolete in 5 to 10 years. Which brings me to my 7th point. Thank you. I'm done with that. I need the next one. There needn't be a cellular tower every square mile. It's not as if Sprint and the other telecommunications companies will be forced into bankruptcy. They have alternatives. One such alternative is a micro cell site. These subdivisions of cell sites provide enhanced coverage and alleviate dropouts or fades. They're designed to fill in coverage in marginal signal areas. They're also used to bridge the signal from one tower on the edge of town to the tower on the opposite edge of town. Microcells appear like whip antennas that are mounted to the roofs or sides of buildings such as Marple Commons. Compared to towers, microcells are low output and inoffensive. The reason Sprint isn't pushing for these, the tower gets $2.5 million. The petition we have circulating the township includes signatures The petitions we have circulating the township include signatures from every single ward. We're getting more support every day, and should anyone like to sign it, it'll be here after the meeting. Respected commissioners, tonight we have given you countless reasons not to build this tower or any other in Marple Township. We have also given you the solutions to the problem. We ask you to make the right decision for the people of Marple Township. Excuse me. Don't think about making money. Think about why you're sitting there, who put you there. It isn't Sprint, AT&T, or any of those greedy telecommunications companies that will be in the voting booths in 1999 and 2001. The wrong decision could cost you your seat. A microwave transmitting tower is a large reminder to your constituents. Thank you for your time and attention to this very serious matter.
Who else? Yes. Gentleman, young man in back there, had his hand up.
Robert Leiter, 31 Crespi Lane. And just on a little lighter note here to interject for a minute in the tower debates, I would like to thank the Board of Commissioners and the Chief of Police for issuing the moratorium till the parking with the high school can be resolved. And I would also urge the Chief of Police to keep on the school district to make sure that they finish with the 55 spots, because I believe they have 33 as of this morning. And other than that, once again, I would like to thank you for looking after the interests of the students as well as the Highland residents, and to thank the Highland residents for compromising on this matter and allowing us to get our parking permits and extending the moratorium till next Monday. Thank you.
Yes.
I have a different topic. Why the whole line we have to be power?
Okay. Yes.
Bob Stinsman, 215 First Avenue, Broomall. I think sometimes I'm only in this world half the time. I think a high school you're discussing tonight, I didn't know a family could afford a car. And now we're talking about parking places for kids to drive theirs. It boggles my mind. I wish the hell I was 19. My old man couldn't afford the gas if I could have taken my car to school. Talking about the phone tower, I was over at Sears last week and the guy's pocket went off and he said hello, and I looked to see if he was dragging a long wire, because in my world, if it's not connected underneath the end table next to the sofa, you're not going to have a phone. But I'm willing to go along with modernization. You can see I have some very learned and accomplished neighbors. So I leave that to those, and I'll struggle along as long as the damn fish bite in the summer and the oil burner works in the winter. I'm through with technology. Gene makes a hell of a cup of coffee, coddles me when I'm sad, and I watch a funny TV show and go to bed at 7 o'clock. I guess there's more on after that, but who cares? But I do have an interest in this damn tower. I guess I'm the one guy who's going to stare at it all the time, because it's right behind the back of my neighbors. And I had a friend come and see me not long ago. He says, you live in a neat neighborhood. All he saw was the township building, rolling road, and down my driveway. It was quiet and it was nice, and that's what I've been looking at since 1949. And it gives me a great deal of pleasure to be able to get up in the morning and look around at the neighborhood. And it's been I've been content there for all these years. Now they're scaring the hell out of me with this tower. I suspect the tower goes up and someday there's going to be a shadow up there that's going to say fee, fi, fo, fum, and I'm the only one he's going to find. Because you'll all be at work. But I do wish that the whole damn thing hadn't come up. Technology is great. Maybe I might need a head transplant, and I'll bless technology. But until then, I'll leave that to others. All I can say is I wish you'd reconsider. When you look at the area around this library, it is a neat community. It really is. You can't find a house that's not well maintained. And when you see that, you see pride of ownership. And when they're all neat, you see pride of community. And by God, there's not a lot of communities left where you get that kind of pride. And you fellas here, I wouldn't want your jobs. Honest to God, I wouldn't. But you're here because we trust you. You're all our friends and you're our neighbors. CEO from Sprint don't live next door to me. We know that these companies have to make a living, and we certainly will use their product. I don't condemn them, but they're not corporate citizens here. They don't live with us. I think because of the attractiveness of our community, the tranquility that we have here, there must be another place for that tower. Not right behind the library, the heart and the most scenic, single, official building that represents us. We don't need it there. It will be a monster, no matter how good it looks, because it will be so out of place. For the sake of all of us, don't destroy our trust in you. You're here because we do trust you. We trust you to do for us what we can't do for ourselves. And we have faith in you. And we want to maintain that faith. So please, do whatever you can to think it through again and find another place that would be more suitable. And let us go back to our whatever it is we're doing.
Would you repeat your name?
I hope the fellow that's whistling isn't from England. You know, in England, that means boo. You asked, my name is Bob Stinsman, 215 First Avenue. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Vinnie Maffei, 3rd Avenue. Sorry, I have a cold, so my voice is pretty bad.
What was your name again?
Vinnie Maffei. I'm just curious, the 4 people that voted for this tower, I'd like to know how much investigation you gentlemen and lady put into your vote. We certainly saw 2 people that put in an awful lot of investigation because it's dear to their heart to not have this tower put up. I'm curious how much information you have on the effects to property values and the health risks of a microwave tower. I certainly wouldn't stand, if I could, and jimmy the door open on my microwave oven, turn the thing on, and stand there and you know, take a sunbath in the thing. And that's exactly what you guys are putting up here. No one knows the effects of these towers.
I think one of the reasons that I'll speak for myself. I don't like to speak for the other commissioners. That I voted for this thing was to provide an opportunity like tonight during the land development and the zoning hearing board waiver process for us to get input such as this. You know, we talked about it at several meetings. We did not get a lot of.
Excuse me. Nope.
Wait.
Nope. Nobody was even notified about this.
Please. You asked me a question, and I'm trying to give you an answer. You know, we're trying to be as courteous as we can to you. So, you know, you don't have to agree with me, but let me just provide an answer. You know, we made sure to make sure that it was contingent upon attaining those 2. And if it did not pass those, then the agreement is null and void. They have to pass land development, and they have to obtain these waivers from our zoning code. So, and by by you, in a very appropriate way, in a very well done way, a very professional way, providing us with the type of input. And if you continue to provide this type of input to the other people who are looking at this, it will be very effective. But that was the start of a long process. And based on what we're seeing tonight, it will be evaluated very, very carefully before things go further. But that is what happened. You asked why it was put on the table. That's why it was put on the table.
But what I actually asked was how much investigation you gentlemen and lady put into this before you actually made any kind of decision, or did you just say, oh well, let's just say yes?
It is knowledge among, it is our impression from reading about some of the things that happened in other townships that these towers are something that are going to be part of our lives for the next few years. And given the circumstances, given that it was going to be in that area, it made more sense to do it on the police, because there was already a tower at the police building, and that was part of the thinking. But that, and maybe, and we certainly will continue to look at it. I mean, maybe in hindsight, the two who voted against it were the right people.
Okay, when it goes to planning and zoning, the only notification that is required is 500 feet. Now, what we did on the people that showed up at the Planning Commission last Wednesday is we passed the pad around and got their name. And I'm wondering if we have a pad that we can pass around so that, if you sign and give us your address, we'll make sure that you get a notice. Because otherwise, it's only stuck in the legal ads in the back.
Well, why should everybody in the township get a notice?
Why shouldn't it be an open debate? Why shouldn't it be an open debate first?
Well, we will do everything. We will do everything we can to make this. We will ask the press to cooperate.
I'm just suggesting
we were told. Wait a minute. You asked the question. The answer to your question. We were told that the only way they could go before our planning commission was because they didn't have title to the tower, was to have an agreement from us. So it was my impression, and maybe it was a bad impression, that the zoning hearing board would make the right decision once we put the issue before them. Now, obviously you wanted us to make the decision, and we could have done that by just saying no right up front. But we were under the impression that we had to have these towers in here, and that it was up to our other boards to look at it. Now, that may have been a very bad decision, but that's what our impressions were. And I don't even think anybody really was against it per se because of it being there. I think there was other issues that caused people to...
I don't think anybody was in favor of it per se.
Or even against it. I think there were other issues that caused people to vote for or against it. But all I can say is that why I voted the way I did was because we were told it was the only way they could really legally go to the zoning hearing board and be turned down or accepted, and that's essentially why I did that. And
you'll now hear, excuse me.
And we were also under the impression that we had to let them someplace in the township.
You're hearing from Ned Coslett and John Longacre and myself the same story. Our impression was that to get the ball rolling, for Sprint to go before the appropriate boards, they needed to have some kind of potential agreement in place with us that if these other things happened, they could proceed.
It was just our ownership of the property.
And that's, excuse me, and sometimes that's the way we in government do things. We learn as we go. We all work part-time at government. We all try to get as much feedback and as much input as we can. But as Ned said, the reason that we started the ball rolling was to get more educated and to see what happens. And there will be, as there are tonight, multiple opportunities for community input, for enlightenment and education of not only the commissioners but also the planning commission and the zoning board, and then collectively down the road then decisions are made. So it becomes a learning process, and there is no vote to move ahead with anything tonight. There's a whole lot of things that needs to happen. And so while it's important to me to hear from anyone, Mrs. Parrish called me. I didn't get a chance to speak to her, but I spoke to her husband at length. And some other people did. That's important stuff. And over the course of the years, we've had a lot of difficult issues to deal with. And people stop me at the post office, they stop me in Pathmark, they stop me in Lawrence Park Shopping Center, they call me, they write to me, they talk to me, and that's part of what I do, part of what I try to do to help. And this is really just part of that process. we were under the impression, and still are, until proven otherwise, that we need to get the ball rolling and find out what's going on, and then make the final decision down the road, not tonight.
Excuse me.
That's up to the chairman.
I'd like to respond to this man also and finish him.
In a second, possible.
And another, everything that Marty and John and Ned said is true. Plus, it was our understanding that the police station needed an updated antenna, and at the time they told us it was going to cost us at least 10 grand to do. Here, Sprint was going to come in and pay for it. So yes, that was a reason for voting yes. Clear and simple.
Okay.
But Ned, I still...
You have to wait. Excuse me, please sit down, and we're going to get everyone speak first, and then you'll have an opportunity for a second.
But Ned, you know, really, if you want mail from the township, you have to register, okay? And we'll make sure you get notices.
Yeah.
But that has to be done. Okay.
We will put a pad out on the maybe Tony.
Start it around.
We'll put a pad out on the desk, and please sign as you leave. Put your name and address on there, and we'll notify you. Yeah, print please, so we can read it.
We can do something a little better than that. I mean, the only reason all these people are here are because of a small group of people that actually heard about this, that got some of their neighbors together that even come here. I think if you got more of the people in the surrounding area, you would get a better judge, be able to judge better how against this people actually are. If you would just inform the public of what's going to happen. If you keep it quiet, it's very easy for you not to see this.
For a public foreman, or, as I said, a planning committee.
Yeah. They are very appropriate comments, and should we get to that point in the process, we certainly will look into that. And that's a very.
You guys are trying to get elected. I see your names everywhere, and see posters everywhere, and I see all kinds of stuff. I think this is the same importance.
I think you'll find that we're fairly accessible.
Excuse me?
I think you'll find that we are accessible.
Accessible, but the word is not getting out.
Well, we have to do a better job of that. You're right. Bob?
At the risk of alienating some of my fellow commissioners and possibly the police department, and this is going to be costly for the township, because we're going to have to invest perhaps $25,000 or $30,000 on our current tower. I just asked the solicitor, could we rescind what we previously did, and to eliminate at least your immediate concerns for planning and zoning and back to commissioners and having a series of meetings. We have been informed that we're at a disadvantage because of the federal laws and the rights of cellular companies to erect these antennas. Maybe there is a better site, and maybe there isn't. I have read a number of articles that what we do is we shift the problem. Let's assume Marple Township has to have towers. We shift the problem from your area to another area. So 3 months from now, we're besieged by 100 individuals from another part of town. But I'm putting on the table the idea, only since the Sprint and OmniPoint haven't returned a document to us, that if nothing more, delay the process and to have more meetings, and perhaps before us, because we are the authority in this town. Yes, we have a planning board. Yes, we have a zoning board. Although the zoning board is somewhat independent, we have the right to appeal a zoning board decision. So the planning board is going to do nothing more than report to us. We are the final authority. What would happen if we moved to rescind what we did last month?
Let me... Of all the township commissioners, I reside closer to the antenna than any other commissioner. I opposed the execution of this lease and voted against it. I explained to the commissioners for philosophical reasons, I didn't think we needed to be a partner to a commercial enterprise and have a terribly distracting antenna in a residential area. The antenna is, there's an unwanted shadow over our residential area, and for good reason. The antenna is not wanted in a dense residential neighborhood. It's terribly distracting from the beauty of our neighborhood, and I think the idea of a placement committee is an excellent idea. I do think, though, unilaterally rejecting every tower at every location is a mistake. That's unreasonable. That's arbitrary. That's capricious. There needs to be a reasonable standard as to appropriate locations. And the burden must be on the cellular companies to identify the appropriate locations and to show us that there's no other locations that are more appropriate. And I don't believe Sprint has gone the extra mile and has identified that there is no other locations. In fact, we were advised that there might be a similar location up at the corner of Sproul and Westchester Pike, adjacent to the business district. That may not be a better location, but they did identify that location may exist. There may be other locations. So we need to feel comfortable that the location that is finally identified is the best and is the most appropriate to provide the appropriate cellular phone coverage. And we want to make sure to mitigate any effect on any residential area.
Are you in favor of rescinding?
What I would like to do is, and I really trust, I am in favor of rescinding it.
Was that a motion?
And I would like to ask the solicitor, so long as we have no reason to believe that the contract has been accepted. So long as it has not been returned to us, we have no knowledge that it's been signed. There's not an offer, an acceptance. I don't believe consideration has been received as of yet. And I'm suggesting to you that if it would be appropriate, would it be appropriate to make a motion to rescind, but also to appoint an appropriate committee to find the appropriate location?
As I indicated, the contract has not been returned to me. I sent the contract off to Sprint, and I unfortunately did not bring the letter with me, but it's been, I think it was directly after the meeting. When was that meeting? That was March the 9th. Okay, it was sent off to them within a week from that date. I think some of the problem is these towers are going to go somewhere, and by federal law. And I think that one of the reasons I think that the commissioners considered this location is because of the fact that there was also pending another application by OmniPoint to erect an antenna in the same general area, which is a competitor. And I think John can probably speak better to
the 32 South Sprawl, which is really Westchester Pike and where Joe's Pizza is, McLaren Oil site. They have put that application in abeyance because they agreed to co-locate if a tower was available at this site. And that's basically what this flyer is saying, co-location, which is what we're trying to force. And my stand from the beginning, okay, I only became a commissioner in January. When I found out there was 2 applications in this area, I said I only want 1 tower in the general area. And I really didn't care if it was at Sprawl Road or here. This site, it filled the need of the police. Okay, the residents up on Sprawl Road in that area don't want it either. Okay, there's also been people to what we used to call Rets or the Marple School. They want to go there. There's also people going at the fire station. I've passed out to the residents acts that the federal government has taken a lot of our rights away. And in fact, on tonight's agenda further down, there's an act that has passed the Congress, our representative had voted for it, and is now before the Senate, which would send appeals to zoning matters after the first local court level right to the federal courts, which basically takes it out of our hands. It turns the control of our zoning over really to the builders because we don't have the money to fight that. Things are happening much faster than what we really expected. This site was talked about since August. When I went campaigning, I did hand out notices on Sproul Road and said, this is coming up. Nobody really was interested. The one resident that spoke here tonight, because I felt he was the most impacted, was one of the ones that I gave the 5 notices to. And he didn't return the call. Okay. And I asked for input. The one resident did ask the neighbors there. I gave out, when we talk about things in executive session, it is a business, Sprint is a business. And while you saw one commissioner tonight retract something he said, when one talks about things that are done in executive session out in public, it leaves one open to really legal suits. But I wanted to leave those, at least the 5 residents that backed onto this site, to know, because now I'm a commissioner and I feel I'm somewhat restricted. As a candidate, I told everybody I ran to on Sproul on First Avenue, hey, they're talking about a tower. And I could do that because I was a citizen from August till November. But as a commissioner, I am somewhat more restricted in what I can say, because we can be sued as commissioners. As a candidate, you can really say whatever you want. You're not restricted as much. And really, nobody really objected. Even the people on Sproul Road that look right at the town, at the police station, they were not concerned about it.
In regards to, what John says does ring true. Oftentimes, we, talk to our neighbors about things and we don't hear anything back until the 11th hour, and then people come to us and say, why didn't you tell us? Well, sometimes we say things to people and they're so busy, and we're all busy with other things, you don't really think about it till the 11th hour. We do try to be open, and I think that's part of what this is. I do have some concerns about rescinding. Of course, my first concern is the risk of legal challenge. With the FTC, tying our hands, legal challenge I think is probably a sure thing. And what a legal challenge can potentially lead to is a court-ordered placement of a tower, and perhaps not only one, but in multiple locations. And as Commissioner Butler said, one of his major concerns throughout the summer, and I happen to not agree with Mr. Butler on many things, but I would give Mr. Butler credit as an avid campaigner, and certainly, letting his residents and his constituents know what's going on. There's no question in my mind that Mr. Butler spoke about the potential tower at McLaren and the potential tower, right here at the police station, and he didn't receive feedback. And that doesn't mean that he wasn't putting the information out. Perhaps he could have done a better job, or maybe it was the time of year or whatever. But I am concerned about court-ordered placement of multiple sites. The idea of this co-location, and just so everybody understands what that is that's having more than one company on the same tower. So rather than Company A having a tower here and Company B having a tower 1 block from here, Company A and B are both on the same tower. So I'm not saying as to whether or not the tower is good or bad, but we all agreed collectively that 1 tower is better than 2 towers. If I might have an opportunity to finish, and I think
Excuse me. You have an opportunity to speak if you choose.
I hope I will. But don't speak of this all collectively.
When I speak collectively, I speak of the board because we've been discussing it for quite some time. The concern that I have with rescinding is placement in other bad areas. We spoke about, there's potentially a problem with an antenna outside of this building. Every neighborhood has the same problem to one degree or another, and while the best thing might be, according to some people, to have no antennas, that I don't think has any kind of likely potential. There will be cellular sites someplace.
Excuse me, you'll have a chance.
I'm just voicing some of the concerns that I have in rescinding. Believe it or not, it's for, I like to think in my mind that I'm trying to do something to protect everybody, not to harm anybody. I live here too, and I raise my family here too. So I do have a concern about placements in other areas. I also have a concern about placements on private property. One of the things that we discussed, and it's happened a number of times over the years, not with cellular towers, but with towers of smaller size and transmission and reception sites of smaller size, is that they are all over the township, smaller size antenna receivers and transmitters that are on private businesses, which are totally out of the control of commissioners, and we're doing our best to even find out where they are. I do have a concern that private property, private landholders, individual private business holders, I don't think certainly a resident would put one in his backyard, but somebody who owns a building might not mind having a tower on his property of his building because it generates revenue for him, not necessarily to his customers, but might be for him. So I do have a concern about private property placements. I think that a unilateral rejection will be extremely dangerous. One of the things that the township faced in years past was unilaterally rejecting land developments of types that were not desirable to us, most specifically mobile homes. And the commissioners at the time said, well, we don't want those things here. They're not any good for us. Well, the courts disagreed, and $450,000 later, Marple Township was faced with the same problem. I'm not saying that cellular towers are good things. I'm not saying that they're bad things. I'm just trying to recognize the potential pitfalls for all of us as taxpayers to just unilaterally say we don't want these things without coming up with an alternative, because we could find ourselves in a similar situation that we had in the early 80s, where it cost us close to $500,000. There will be other opportunities to reject. There will be other opportunities to reject if we feel that it's not appropriate, and I am only one voice. And putting our heads in the sand is not the answer.
Who would like to speak who has not spoken? In back has been up. Had her helmet, Debbie. Yeah.
Good evening. I'm Debbie Watson. I live at 2614 Franklin Avenue. First of all, I just wanted to say, Eddie, thank you. You know why. He filled in a retention pond that 10 years ago we wanted to put it underground, and they neglected to do it. Now 10 years later, Eddie took care of it for us, so we thank you. I am not for any more towers, okay? I don't care where you put towers. Put them in the industrial park. Put them in St. Peter and Paul Cemetery, because the radiation waves aren't going to hurt anybody in St. Peter and Paul's. How many towers do we have in Marple Township right now?
No, their list is fairly complete.
Okay,
Here.
well, I haven't seen it.
Okay.
How many is there?
11 on the list.
12.
12.
I count 12.
6 existing.
6 existing, okay. How many towers how many towers does the federal government, if this is how it works, make a township have by federal law? Is that how this works?
They're permitted to put a tower every mile and a half.
By the federal government? Now, wait a minute.
I hope that's not
let me ask the question.
It appears that we have one of the attorneys representing one of the cell sites that's on the agenda tonight, item 12.
Okay, but you're
Okay,
not giving
but-
me an answer,
no,
John.
it appears there's about 8 carriers. From what I've heard at the planning meetings that I've attended, the coverage is only about 1.5 miles, So each carrier needs a location about every mile and a half.
Well, what they...
Omni Point, okay, is over at what we call 1974 Sproul Road, which I would call the Lincoln Bank Building.
Across from Lawrence Park Shopping Center?
They want to locate here, and they also want to locate in Newtown Towers. So that's like
Newtown Towers is in Newtown Square, right?
Yes.
Okay, well,
But
I really
I'm
don't
just
care
saying,
about Newtown
that's
Square. I live in Broomall.
But you're finding them about a mile and a half apart.
Why do they have to be so close?
Because from what I understand, okay, it's not my field. I'm an industrial management graduate. It's outside my area, but what I've learned, okay, is that basically the handheld phones that you're using now are about a half a watt, and they only transmit about a mile and a half. So that's why you need to have reception every mile and a half. The old type phones, okay, had long range. They were the real high towers.
Okay, now.
And they covered maybe 20 or 30 miles or something with one phone. But the little ones, they're low output.
The little flip phones.
Little flip phones, right. And plus the other thing is, how many people are walking around here with a pager? It's the same thing. It's coming off of one of those towers.
Now, I also want to know if by chance, okay, let's put a scenario here. If by chance you decide that we have to have it either here at the township building, okay, excuse me, let me rephrase that, at the police station, or McLaren. You think this room full of people is bad? Move it to McLaren's and see what you get, okay? It's not going to be any better. Why do we have to have a tower within this immediate area?
Because it's a mile and a half from their tower that's existing in Lawrence Park, in the industrial park. And they're the ones designated on their grid that this is the area.
Okay, now are they going to, if they're moving from that building there across from the shopping center, are they going to close that one too?
No.
Oh no,
No,
this is another one completely.
Another cell.
So nobody's going to abandon that tower and that's going to be there.
Right.
So in other words, people, if they were smart, would stop buying flip phones and pagers and live without them so that they don't have to talk to people while they're shopping or they're in the supermarket or everything. So
They've been outlawed in Australia. They should outlaw them here too.
I don't get it, guys.
Okay, anything else?
They've been outlawed in Australia.
Yeah, I also wanted to know, should I decide to visit a friend on Highland Avenue and it's before 10 o'clock in the morning, Chief Dunn, and I park on the street, will I get a ticket?
Yes.
Oh, I will.
Yeah, it's everybody.
That's lovely.
Okay, yes, in front here. Wait till you get the mic.
Nick Tenari Jr., 104 Davis Avenue. I would like to apologize to Commissioner Nash for interrupting him. As you can see, it's a very emotional issue, and I did get carried away with that. I think a lot of my neighbors are very concerned about the health effects, and I don't know why you haven't addressed it flat out. The federal government, okay, you want to talk to Kurt Weldon, you want to talk to Senator Specter, you want to talk to Senator Santorum. The federal government was bought by the telecommunications industry. I can say that, I'm not a commissioner. I'll read it to you. No state or local government or instrumentality thereof may regulate the placement, construction, and modification of personal wireless service facilities on the basis of environmental effects of radio frequency emissions, to the extent that such facilities comply with the Commission's regulations concerning such emissions. Essentially, the federal government, your federal government, rammed this thing down the throat of every small community in this country, okay?
Right.
These guys are powerless to deal with the problem of health risks. They cannot fight this tower, any tower, on health risks, okay? You have to keep that in mind. But there are other issues, and I think the issue that bothers a lot of you just as severely is the issue of aesthetics, okay? What bothered me with what Commissioner Mash says was that one tower is better than two. One 140-foot tower is not better than two small, inconspicuous towers, okay? I want to just ask a question of the board because I'm not aware. Is there a zoning ordinance for the towers in place, or is it about to be worked on, or what is going on with that?
There is one in place that is in the process of being modified.
Okay, so you do have rules and regulations for these things, but you are adjusting that.
That's correct.
And I think that everyone here should involve themselves in that process, okay? The regulation, the zoning regulation of these things. I want to just point out very quickly, I realize there's a lot of people and you have a lot of things to say, that some communities have adopted very strict zoning rules, okay? Now, I don't think we have to be afraid of lawsuits if we do things properly, okay? The community of Wellington in Florida adopted a very thick and very stringent zone regulation for the towers. It allows them, it has to allow them because the federal government demands that. It's another problem. But I just want to read one paragraph from that, and I think you'll agree that this is the kind of thing we need here. They talk about aesthetics, and they talk in here about, I lost the page. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for your patience. Just one little paragraph in a very thick zoning regulation, but I think it's a suggestion that we want to consider here. This is Wellington, Florida. Exterior finish and stealth requirement, except where superseded by the requirements of other county, state, or federal regulatory agencies possessing jurisdiction over wireless communication towers, antennae, and associated facilities. All wireless communication towers, antennae, and facilities within the village limits shall be stealth facilities, camouflaged to blend into the surrounding environment using stealth technology in a design and manner pre-approved by the village. This is the kind of thing you're going to have to involve yourself in over the long term, that we demand that these towers be inconspicuous as possible. It's going to be damn inconvenient for the phone companies to have to put them smaller and less powerful. They'll have to put more of them, and they'll have to do more work. But a 140-foot tower is very convenient for them. They can put more wattage, they can put more channels on a very high tower because they know they've got clear reception. The bottom line is, get involved in your zoning process. Also, get involved in the federal issue. There's no reason in the world why the government should have sold out every community in this country and forced these things on everyone. It happened very quickly, happened under the table, just like some of you may think this happened. And the bottom line is, it's the kind of thing that needs to be fought, and it needs to be fought at the federal level and not just here. Thank you.
Could you provide us with a...
I certainly will provide you with a copy of the Wellington...
Accommodate with a copy of that ordinance so that we can...
I would be glad to.
Thank you. Who else would like to speak on this issue and who has not spoken? Yes. I'll get to possibly a short comment and follow-up, but everyone has to speak first.
It's your turn. Just pass it back.
My name is Jeff Sebastian. I live at 21 Rose Street Drive. Quick question for Commissioner Coslett. You've repeatedly mentioned this evening, or used the words, an extension of the police tower in describing... I guess I'm confused. Are there two separate things here? Is there proposed extension of the... I know the police on this tower...
I misspoke. It will be a new tower to replace the existing tower and provide additional capabilities.
Not at the police building behind the library, municipal building. Is that the proposed location?
Yes.
The one that's out there now.
Okay. Thank you.
I apologize for any...
no problem. Thank you. My compliments on the suggestion of rescinding, and if I might toss a suggestion in getting interested in this along the way, I've noticed, reading up on literature, numerous municipalities have put a moratorium on new applications. I realize there's nothing you can do about existing applications for proposed towers. A suggestion might be a moratorium on any new applications until you can have your public forums, until we're better informed about the health aspects, until we're better informed about the burden of proof on the phone companies to prove to us and to research the stealth facilities to blend them in better. And I think something like that should be considered for any new applications. That's it.
Thank you.
My name's Scott Goldman. I live at 200 Rolling Road. I sold cellular phones for 10 years, and there's a lot of cellular phone companies out there, and is every one of these companies going to come in and be able to put towers every mile and a half?
Probably. That's one of the concerns we're going to face. And that's why we're looking for co-location.
So does this township have the land to cover a tower every mile and a half?
So that's not up to, that's up to the providers to determine, but that's how vulnerable we are on this issue.
All right, because I mean, gladly, I'll take 15,000 to put one on my property, but I don't think the township's going to let me zone for it.
Well, just you as the township would have to go through a variance process.
Well, in order, and so I can put up 140
You don't have
towers.
any more rights to do it according by our zoning hearing board than we do.
Okay.
You'd have the same restraints.
And one other thing, is this going to be the tower? Has anybody seen the tower that went up in Havertown? Is this the same tower? All right, because I mean, 8 months ago, I gave a gentleman the full asking price on his house. I could have stayed in Havertown and gotten this. You know, I mean, when we were living in Havertown, we knew just as much about it as we all do now.
I think the reality is that if anyone here moves, they're going to be vulnerable to having one of these things in their backyard. That's the reality of it. None of us like it, but that's the reality of it.
All right, thanks.
Anyone else like to speak who hasn't spoken? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Marie McGuigan. I live at 228 First Avenue. I'll be staring at this monstrosity. I would just like to know if the reason it's being put there is genuinely to support the police capabilities for what they need. I don't think anybody in the township would not come forward and put out the $15,000, $20,000 and have that fixed to whatever they needed, because we're all back to the police department. So is the police department just kind of to get them in here, and it's just a ruse for us to go along with it?
Let me, Officer Moyes, who is in the police department, is here tonight, had prepared some thoughts on this, and I wanted him to get some comments in here as well, and your invitation gives him that opportunity. So if you could sit down for just a second, you may come back to the mic, and he can address that.
Okay. Thank you.
If you want to sit there and come back up, okay.
Do you need your letter?
My name is Detective John Moyes. I'm with the police department. I'm the communications officer for the police department, and as such, I'm probably one of the only ones in the room that is totally in favor of the particular antenna. And yes, it is in my backyard too, in my front yard. I live on New Ardmore Avenue at Clover, right at the circle. And basically the reason that I can stand up here in front of you and make that comment is because of the fact that the information that we have gotten and we have researched, not only myself, but it's been passed along to the commissioners, have taken into consideration a lot of the things that you people have talked about here tonight. The issue in reference to RF, first of all, I'd like to say that this antenna that we're talking about and the tower that we're talking about is a monopole antenna, or monopole tower. It is similar to, but not like, the one in Haverford Township. The aesthetics of it, I believe that anybody that would see it, and if it wasn't going in your backyard, if it was going into someone else's backyard, you would agree that this antenna is a better looking antenna than the one in Haverford Township. But that's only because of its construction. This antenna is a tapered pole from the bottom to the top, not a step down arrangement like the one in Haverford, the one outside the Haverford Township. I can't see. I can't see it. Well, there's a monopole. Just means it's a single mast. Well, yeah, we're talking about two different things. Levels and users and the terminology that's been passed around here tonight, it's gone from a regular RF to a microwave. I heard that it was being called now. It's not a microwave signal that's gone up there, so you can change your thought process in reference to that frequency range. But the reason that I brought up my two radios here is because of the fact I'd like to give you some idea in reference to the RF
that these antennas are going to put out. And radio frequency, the output. The antennas that are presently on the existing tower, and probably a lot of you, the people that I've talked to, don't even know where our existing tower is. It's directly in front of the police station. It's even painted a red and white, so it's visible, more visible for aircraft, low-flying aircraft. And a lot of people don't even realize it's there. They've lived in the township for many, many years and don't realize it's there. But that antenna out there, at the very top, is our UHF antenna. That's the one that transmits the frequency that the police department operate on. This piece of equipment right here transmits 4 to 5 watts every time the police officer pushes the button and has that antenna right beside his head. If the antenna at the top of this 140-foot mast were emitting what they have told us that it's going to emit, and that's 8 watts RF, 8 watts of power, just 3 more watts than this does when it's properly tuned, at 150 feet is going to emit an RF that by the time it gets down to 150 feet, it's dissipated, as opposed to having the police officers every day using this right beside their head. I'm not trying to get sympathy for the police department. I'm merely trying to explain the difference between putting that antenna that you're concerned with the RF 150 feet up in the air, as opposed to the present tower that's only 85 feet in the air. We transmit out of that antenna 50 watts ERP, effective radiated power, every time we key up on the transmitter. So we're putting out 50 watts there. This antenna at 140 feet will be putting out 8 watts. Just to give you a little idea of where we stand as far as frequencies, as far as RF is concerned. So your concerns about the RF and the hazards, a lot of the studies that were brought out tonight have not been proven. The one in reference to the RF, just recently, it was on the television, that study was not proven, that it was proven to be incorrect. So the only thing that I'm trying to explain is that a lot of the information that you're getting is not true and correct. I realize, and like I said, the not in my backyard feelings has a lot to do with the issue that's everyone's here with tonight. But believe me, the idea of the commissioners rescinding it at this point in time, after this gentleman spoke and explained what the federal government has done, is going to create problems for you, the people that don't want this antenna. And I can explain it under one thing. The Public Utilities Commission, PUC, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but in our township today, up behind Marple Ford, down on Westchester Pike, excuse me, at the Blue Route, right smack dab in front of Cardinal O'Hara High School, there's telephone poles. On the top of those telephone poles are digital cellular antennas, similar to the ones that we're going to put 50 feet up in the air. They are being allowed to be installed because they don't have to go before any board, any commissioners, anything other than the PUC and say, hey, we're going to give you a portion of our profits and we're going to put these antennas on your telephone poles wherever we want to. And that's exactly what that's what they're doing. They're putting them up. They didn't come before the commissioners to get those antennas put up because they don't have to. If we don't put the antenna 150 feet up in the air, 140 feet up in the air, and that's the top deck, if we don't put it up there, there's nothing stopping them from putting it on the telephone pole at the Russell School where the siren is, the telephone pole right out here, the one right across the street from the police station. We can't stop them from doing that. Now you're going to be admitting that RF that everyone's afraid of at 30 feet above the ground level as opposed to 140 feet. So I'm just trying to give you that information. As I said, I'm in favor of this antenna, and it's based on, my favoritism is based on all the information that I've received so far and that I've researched. I'm very much concerned with the fact that my relatives, I have a nephew that lives right on Rolling Road. I have friends in the area. I consider you all my friends. I'm concerned about your welfare and your concerns about this antenna tower. But by stopping it, by rescinding it now, is not what you want to do, believe me. I could sit back and say, well, I knew that was going to come up, but I don't want to do that. I want you to be aware of the fact that if you stop this particular one, you can't stop them all. And there's no way around it. Believe me, if there was a way, I'd be the first one to tell you about it. And I hope that I have that kind of response on what I just told you. The other thing is, in reference to the police antenna, there's been I think I've been totally misquoted in reference to comments that I made to people who have called me. The fact that we don't need a new antenna, that we need 15 feet, I believe I've been definitely misquoted. Our antenna used to be on this location, approximately where they're putting the new elevator. The ground level for that antenna when it was originally put up is 15 feet higher than what it is now down in front of the police department. And that doesn't seem like much across this piece of property, but this piece of property slopes off quite a bit. So that's where the 15 feet came in. If we were to redo our tower, the one that's out there now, I would like to go a lot higher than 15 feet. 15 feet is just bringing me back to where I was. It's been proven that this antenna is not giving me the coverage, police-wise, that I should have for this particular site. So I'd like to go higher. That's why I was the one that wanted to go at 120 feet, and that's why they said 140 was the maximum that the commissioners would allow. So going up 120 feet is going to give me the coverage for the police communications that I feel that we need in this particular issue. The other thing about our antennas over there, that tower has been here since, well, about the same time as I came on. I've been off the force for 28 years. That tower has only been inspected once, the day that we took it down from its old location, laid it down, drug it across the parking lot, inspected it, painted it, and put it back up. And the cost of inspection was incorporated in that move. So the cost that I'm getting now, I've heard everywhere from $10,000 to $45,000 to redo that antenna. Believe me, it's going to cost every bit of that. To re-inspect that antenna, to make sure that every one of the welds are safe. That's a truss antenna. Each piece of that antenna is welded together. You have to inspect every weld out there. The older antenna gets, the more money the companies want to certify that it's safe. And that's a concern of all of ours, I'm sure, to have that antenna topple or to have any antenna topple. Of course, if you get the statistics on antennas toppling, it's very, very low and under a lot of different circumstances. So they're the things that I want you as the public to understand. We're putting the commissioners, and I don't always agree with my bosses, but in this particular case, I do agree. The way that they did it, the fact that they okayed them to go before the zoning is because of the fact I knew about this antenna back in November. I knew that the public was going to be here, that there were going to be more meetings in this. They did too. They didn't try to hide anything from me, believe me. When they gave them the okay to go before the public, before the other committees and get things passed, they knew it was going to be dragged out, and they knew the public was going to know about it. And if they didn't know, they should have known. I would have let you know, because of the fact that I want you to be as informed as they are when they make the decision. If they turn around tomorrow and vote this antenna tower in, believe me, I honestly believe that it's going to be in your best interest that they're going to do that. I've heard a lot of threats about them running again, and I'm sure they hear it every time they do run. But believe me, I honestly believe that on this particular issue, they are going to support you people that are in this room just as much as they are the people down in Lawrence Park or the other end of the township. Because this issue is very emotional, as Sue has shown, and I've shown, that we want to do what's the best for everybody. I really honor the fact that you people were so supportive of the police department, and if it comes down to the fact that we need to replace that antenna, or to re-inspect that antenna, or to raise that antenna, I certainly appreciate your comments and the fact that you're going to support us to do that. Are there any questions for me? Matt?
I have one question. Chief Dunn.
No, he's Chief Dunn.
Another promotion. Maybe
President Gosler.
Just a couple brief questions.
My question was, when you mentioned that the top of the tower would emit 8 watts, I have seen the blueprints for the tower that's supposed to go at 752 Old Marple Road, and the 8 watts was crossed out and 800 watts written in on the blueprint.
We have a solicitor here tonight.
FCC will not allow them to put 800
I think it's
watts.
800 megahertz, but maybe...
That's the frequency range, and it may have said milliwatts.
It's 8 watts, right?
That's what we've been told, yes.
We'll make sure we monitor that.
Because they have about 100 different channels that they put out. So 8 watts times 100 channels with 3 different carriers on the tower.
No, only 2 carriers on the tower.
Okay.
No.
Okay,
The police and 2, that's 3. So don't, that's what I'm saying. You're getting wrong information, and we want to get it right.
All the
We want
parties
you to get it right.
established that
Some other ward.
they could not put any more than 2. No more than 2 parties could co-locate on this device. Okay. Was that a question for?
Did you want to let Mrs. McGuigan talk?
Were these questions for Officer Morse, or were these comments you wanted to make to the public? Okay. There was one lady in the back that had a question for Officer Morse.
Right. Well, it's not required to be any greater than that.
Okay, not required. Obviously, I would think it was a hazard because nobody even looked at it. 28 years?
No. I meant to say that the antenna has only been certified once since its existence. It gets checked, believe me. It gets checked by me for strength. If I see an obvious crack in the weld or what I believe is chip paint, then of course I would call somebody in. Yes, it's tended to. Every time an antenna man climbs up that antenna, believe me, he's looking before he goes 1 foot higher. So don't believe it hasn't been. Do you direct your question to the chair?
Okay. Thank you.
That means that one.
Well, you're going to get an opportunity. Officer Morse, I was just thanking you for his comments.
You're asking on.
Okay, yes, you may come forward and make a comment.
I just wanted to ask the officer if...
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you said you didn't want to.
No, I wanted to ask him a question.
John.
Just about the health hazards and risks. I'm concerned about that. Or...
Again,
John, excuse me, you might as well come back over and repeat the question if you would. And
Use your cell phone.
The health issue that we're talking about is in... Oh, okay, I thought that was your question.
Since we're all aware that the government, our big government, doesn't really tell us a lot of things about health issues, and we have to find it out on our own, a lot of times it's too late. Are the commissioners alerted and educated, and do they have things in writing, and have they read things about the health hazards? Have you, is there something we can see, tangible proof that there is no harm with these radiation and microwaves?
Oh, there's tons.
That's scary as hell.
There's tons of information out there. On the internet, there's all kinds of...
Well, it's not microwaves. You might want to...
That's right. We're not talking microwave here. So, and basically, as far as the commissioners are concerned, the gentleman here brought a document that he read from, and the commissioners asked to see a copy of that. I'm sure they do the same thing. They've asked me to report to them. They've asked the cellular companies to supply them with information. We've all talked personally to other people that are knowledgeable in these fields. As far as I am aware of, the health hazard, as far as the RF is concerned, is not an issue on this particular antenna because of the fact of what I just explained to you. 8 or 5 watts power output as opposed to 8 watts, 140 feet. That's like taking this, or a larger radio than this, doubling the RF output and moving it from my body 140 feet away and then transmitting. I don't think that the health hazard is there. The federal government or the FOP, believe me, and I don't know if you're aware of the information that has been circulated in reference to the radar guns that the police officers have used. The FOP would get up and stop them from issuing us portable radios if there was a health hazard, believe me.
Amen.
And that's the bottom line. The people that are...
That we know for sure.
Okay.
I wouldn't be carrying this thing if I thought it was...
Yes, sir, in the back.
8 watts per channel, right? How many channels, with a police radio, you get a dispatch, that's 5 watts to that radio, once, right? With all the telephones in the area, okay, it's 8 watts per channel, and if you make 100 phone calls at one time from that call, that's 800 watts.
Well, if
Right?
you're...
At one time, if you call, everybody called at once, there's 100 channels
all putting out 8 watts, 800 watts. Is that true?
Yes, it's true. Your calculation, the way you're calculating, is true. But if you were to tell me that there are only hundreds of these radios out there that are able to be used at one time from one site, I would say you're misinformed. It's thousands of radios. If you were to take thousands of cellular phones and multiply them by the 8 power factor that we're talking about, there will be so much radiation coming from that antenna. It would have to be made of some alloy that, that would, withstand that kind of RF. That's not the way you calculate.
That's the technical information that we need.
That's right.
Absolutely, and that is.
That's 5 watts for your the police, and then you have 2 more carriers putting out how many watts per channel per time at any given time.
You're absolutely right. But
These are appropriate questions that have to be resolved as we go through the process. Okay. Yes.
Jim Berger, 126 2nd Avenue. It's obvious that there's a lot more knowledge that we need to gain from on this issue, and we have a lot of boards and commissions in our town, and we have 2 people sitting here, Mrs. Parrish and Mr. Raschuti, who've done a lot of back-breaking work on this issue. It seems to be an all-encompassing issue. It's an issue that's going to go on, and I'm suggesting that perhaps tonight the citizens can come away with something. We could maybe appoint them to a new board to look at these towers around our town. I feel very comfortable with them possibly sitting in that position and looking at this issue. They have a lot of knowledge. We need to use their knowledge and for the benefit of the community. That's all I have to say.
Yes. Has anyone else not spoken yet on the tower issue? Okay, quick follow-up, and then we're going to adjourn after this for 5 minutes.
I just need to clear something up very quickly. I think there's a lot of misinformation too tonight, and I agree with that. But just to clear it up, we don't have to pray to the FCC God. We don't have to pray to the telecommunications God. You're very misinformed on that. And this is according to the Pennsylvania House of Representatives, also the facility sitting radio frequency emission standards by the FCC. And they're both in agreement. They say the same things, that the subcommittee finds that state and local governments, including this township, exercise authority as deemed necessary and appropriate over the placement where construction, if you don't have to use the tower, you can use the microcells, the little whip antennas. So we're not saying they can't come here. I never said that. I know you can't beat them that way. I'm saying use something smaller that can conduct the business, using it as a bridge from one tower on the outskirts of one side of town to the other. You don't have to use a big tower. It just doesn't generate a lot of money because you can't charge. If Sprint owns the tower, you can't charge Bell. They can't charge OmniPoint. It's all about money. So
well, it's not, just to correct you there.
Yeah.
The motivation in passing this was not to try to, was not motivated by financial gain to the township at the expense.
Oh, no, I understand. I think.
Okay, I thought you were inferring.
No, I think that you were misinformed.
Okay.
I think that you don't have the knowledge that there is technology out there other than these giant towers to accomplish the same job. So I'm not saying the towers can't come here. I'm not saying take it out of our neighborhood and put it in your ward or your ward. I'm not saying that. I'm saying we need to work together like Connecticut does and say, okay, well, they need a cell site. Can they put it on the Marple Commons? Can they use that with a mini cell site? That's what Connecticut does. They use a lot of mini cell sites inside the community because it's low impact, low wattage, and referring to the officer with the little radios, I work as an investigator and I use the same exact radios that the police use. I just can't use their frequencies. They do transmit at 5 watts. But the one thing that the officer might not know, or what he might not be aware of, is that little radio. They tell you, don't touch the whip antenna to your skin and transmit. Am I right? I mean, if you're aware of that, they tell you don't do that because you get a radiation burn from 5 watts. Okay, so that's something to think about. That's why they wear the radios. I have the radios. They came in the box, and they were about $700 to $800 each. And I have the instructions. They don't tell you why. they tell you don't touch the whip antenna to your skin, hit transmit. Okay, and that's in reference to the radiation burns.
Well, you wouldn't stick it in your mouth and transmit either, but the reason...
Right, but what I'm saying is...
There's a reason for that, and the main reason that warning's on all the radios, any portable radio, in case you should have a pacemaker or something that's in your body that the electronics would interfere with. 5 watts will not burn you. I'll stick that antenna in my mouth and transmit, and 5 watts is nothing.
No, I understand, but what I'm saying is that this is according to the manufacturers. They do emit radiation. This is what I'm saying. Then the officer did.
There's no doubt about it.
Right.
But 5 watts isn't enough radiation.
All right, but just to finalize.
Final.
This is it. All right. Bottom line is that the commissioners can control the situation. You sound like you're under the control of the government, and you're under the control of the cellular towers, the companies that make them. They're not, they do not control you. You can control them, but you have to know what you're talking about. You have to know about technology. You have to tell this cell company, can you use a cell site here? Will it be sufficient for your needs? That's basically it.
Okay. Thank you. I'd like to thank you. I would like to thank everyone for coming and the demeanor in which they handled themselves. It was a very productive conversation. I know all the commissioners here learned a lot. I think hopefully everyone did, and through these exchanges of information, we will come up with something that works best for the residents of Marple Township. We will adjourn for 5 minutes, and then we will continue the citizens forum. Anyone who did not have a chance to speak would do so at that time, and then we'll move into our regular meeting. But we're going to adjourn for 5 minutes. There is a pad outside. Code Enforcement Tony Amadei has a pad out there for those who want to sign and put their address to be